Hello, my name is Willie White, and I am recording a reaction to an Orange Couch series featuring a young lady by the name of Nab, Nab, Najabula, Njabulo, and the Orange Couch series that is designed to address gender based violence or designed to bring some conversation to the table about gender based violence, domestic violence, violence on a subculture based on whatever perception. There's many ways that this can be defined or described, and I know that the focus for this particular series or the focus for this particular 16 days of observance is violence against women. And so we want to pay attention to the reality of how prevalent the statistic of 1 in 3 women are abused and are approached by some sort of violence, either in the home or in the relationship or in the family, and that is such a large statistic. We need to have these types of conversations in order to bring not only this issue to light, but to get out of the problem and into the solution. With Miss Nabula, we look at the reality of coming up in a system where the family was intact and where the reality of how she was raised and groomed and allowed to be consider herself to be in that system an introvert. And so what this particular young lady kind of illustrated was that even if the reality of at home is not a environment of abuse, that there is a concept of there's an area of the domestic dispute that is unexplainable in the sense of in relationship abuse, in these forms of violence of intimacy, that the victims oftentimes are so caught off guard that they secondarily blame themselves. I thought that Ms. Nabula said some very interesting things about being age 17 and being age 18, 17 to 18, when she was first stricken or first exposed to abuse or violence in a relationship. And her first instinct was to fix it. And so the nurturing aspect of the characteristic of a woman tends to lead itself to that of fixing him. And she talked about another aspect that is far too present in these situations, which was what appeared to be alcohol abuse in this situation. As she verbalized, she never identified her significant other as an abuser of a substance, but what she did was she discussed some of the telltale signs of a person's progression of use. Not to make that an excuse for his abuse, but to identify the reality of how quickly a situation has the ability to turn and how violent it can become with the combination of a substance, whether that be alcohol or another drug. What it does is it amplifies the threat level. It amplifies the the experience in such a way. What drugs do is they lower a person's inhibitions, and in that aspect, she described him as, after once putting his hands on her, after once assaulting her, as it being a demon that was released, and he began to take pleasure in the ability to control her. She winds up in a situation where she allows herself to be hid in a room and locked in a room and she found herself in a place in a relationship that she would not have considered a part of what um, was normal or acceptable for her in that situation. And yet, and still, she went through with it and she okayed it in such a way that is the personality and the attitude that is developed in the atmosphere of abuse. I can remember as a child hearing the parents talking about someone's will being beat out of them. There is so many different ways that we normalize abuse in our cultures, and we normalize domestic violence in our houses, in our homes. What is said in the house stays in the house. And for this situation to play out in a way that it did, where the young woman winded up crawling on the floor, being at the will of the hospital, and being in the presence of help and not being able to call out help because of the atmosphere that had been created, the terror atmosphere that had been created as a result of the longevity of abuse. When an individual is put in a place of complete victimhood, it's really difficult to be able to change that, to unlock that, to be able to come out and be able to do something different. The joy in the end of this was, in my opinion, was this young lady Njabulo being able to verbally state that she has two daughters and she is raising them intentionally, and she is involved in the process of breaking the cycle of miscommunication, breaking the cycle of oppression, breaking the cycle of abuse by intentionally raising her children to see things different. And I think that that is where this conversation has to end, is with parents being able, us as parents, our younger generation parents, being able to come to the table and talk about the realities of where they come from, so that they don't recreate the atmospheres where abuse is okay. And that's on the father, that's on the mother, that's on the cousin, that's on, it takes a village to raise a child. And so we all have to get on one accord with the message that violence is not accepted in the relationships, period.